podcast is never intended as legal advice. Each podcast is a brainstorm of ideas and potential solutions. Consult an attorney for your legal questions. Thank you. Welcome. Today's discussion is how to help your family member when they really don't want help. This is quite frequent as my parents' generation was very independent and wanted to take care of everything themselves, and they just never let loose of that independent spirit. My mother was sick on a number of occasions, and we were on a first name basis with the local EMTs. And every time I had to call the EMTs, my mother would say, "No, don't do that, don't do that. I don't want to go to the hospital." And what I finally learned that really made a difference was to tell my mom, "If you could stop me, then I will not call." Well, she was always sick enough, she could barely walk over to me. She wasn't bedridden by any stretch of the means, but she was unable to help herself get where she needed to go, stop whatever the illness was she had, because it varied from a colon blockage where she hid that she was not doing well to actually having a major internal infection. And when an elder person or disabled person has an internal infection and they can't help themselves, then they generally have lots of accidents. Not necessarily accidents where they fall and break their leg, but they can. And so when my family member would say, "I'm fine, don't do anything," I knew that family member was not managing well, was not processing well, and essentially needed help. Did I ever drive them to the hospital? As a general rule, no, but I did one time and realized had my mom been really badly, I might have lost precious time. My mom had been in rehab and was doing quite well. It was the year that we were in the hospital 10 times that year. And when I went to pick her up because she was visiting with my father, she got in the car. Now, I helped her get in the car because she wasn't standing and wasn't real mobile. And I said, "Okay, Mom, so are we back to the rehab center?" And she said, "No, we have to go to the hospital because I broke my hip." What person could be calm enough to tell you that? I was completely amazed. And by Jove, she was right. She said she stood up, heard the crack, and then sat down, but she was quite comfortable sitting. So I took her to the hospital. She ended up having surgery, of course, and she did fine. It was amazing. She was in her late 80s and she still did fine. And so in that instance, when your family member says, "Take me to the hospital," you definitely don't think twice, you go. And anytime you observe your family member being quite ill, you get them to the hospital as often as you need to so they get professional help. I know there are times, and that's the first part of the year with the influenza season, that it makes it much more difficult to get them to the hospital and to get them to rehab. I had one year that all the rehab centers were full, and so I struggled with where to take my mom and where to have her placed, because I didn't have very many choices. There were too many people ahead of us. So in a nutshell, when your family member needs to go to the hospital and you need to get them there, remember, I will not take you to the hospital if you can stop me. That empowers you to give your parent a way to control the situation while still taking good care of them. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking further about how to assist with this journey in your life.